Hi, this is 365801 and this is another tag video for Futekiya reads. Well, I say Futekiya, but actually it's Manga Planet now, but not gonna lie, this is something that I was actually in the middle of doing a different tag video when they kind of announced and started the whole changeover into Manga Planet from Futekiya. So I was in the middle of doing a tag video when I kind of stopped, and then when I went back to do it, it was like, oh, this is it. So I'm actually doing a different tag video, as you can see from the thumbnail. This is a kind of redoing of a tag. When you do a tag and you read everything that's on that tag, that's great and you feel accomplished, and then you can go back and after a year and a half, and then read the new titles. Now this is also a kind of review of Manga Planet as I'm experiencing it now. Okay, so we have all the information at the start, and then you have all of these then you have Futekiya. It's just not so nice. I know it's a small thing, but I really like the pink. Not because I'm anti-feminist, but just because the pink was a nice shade of pink and it just kind of soothed me, and it was nice that it was our little, it's supposed to be our little slice of the internet, and now it kind of feels like we're just like everyone else. So yeah, we're gonna have a wee look to see what it's like, and I have to mention a few things that I don't particularly like if I come across it, and things that I do like if I come across something I do like. Probably not so much. Anyway, first off, we're going to do what we would normally do. We would go into a tag. Now, before it was in the browse section, that your tags were in the browse section. Now it's a specific thing, so you go to tag. At this point, you have to specify that it's the BL, Futekiya, that you want to look up. And they've actually added content warnings, which I don't think were there before. So this must be a new thing, right? Tell me if this was there before, because I don't actually remember content warnings. What we're looking at, obviously, is a redoing of the Omegaverse. So you go down to find where it is, and I'm going to be looking for it, setting in Omegaverse. Now, obviously, it's quite good that you can exclude something and include something. These are things that were there before, and I really like them. So we're going to apply so that we can see what the Omegaverse comes up with as a tag for Futekiya. Now, someone was really good about specifying online that one of the best things to do is actually to click released first instead of released last, and that way I can see what I've already read and go through all of that till I can get to the new stuff. The other thing is, obviously, I don't want free previews or buy or rental. I'm a subscriber. I have a subscription plan. I don't want to read things that I then have to purchase extra for. There's the whole point of being on the, like, it's a pretty big point, is that I don't spend extra, and it's a very reasonable price, especially when you get a good deal or a discount or something like that. It's quite good to be able to say, here's the money, I paid the money, and I can read everything on this site. And now, unfortunately, that's not the case. I do think that there should be a view of the site. Like, if you are just a subscriber and you do not plan on purchasing anything extra, then you get a cleaner view of the site, which was what Futekiya was like before. I think that is something that could be done. It probably won't be, because they want you to spend more money. I could go for completed as well. That also is also another way of doing it, so that you don't have to actually see things that are in progress, but we will see. So press apply and see what comes up. And it should be, first and foremost, all of the things that I've already read in the last tag video for Omegaverse. And this is what's coming up. Now, before, it would have said, and it would have shown that I had already read these, and that's not coming up now. In any kind of search, it would have been that there was a little section at the bottom, and it had whatever number and a forward slash, and then the number of the chapters that's available within this manga that I could read or have already read, and it would come up and show if you'd finished it or not, which was great in the search bar, the search engine, if you were looking at it. So I could already tell I've already read this. So what happened was I went through all of these going, oh yep, they were in my video, they were in my video, they were in my video. And then I got to this one, and because I can't see it, and because it says in progress, I was like, oh, did I read this? And I couldn't remember if I'd read it or not. So I've actually gone back and already read it. Reread it is actually the case. Because I had to check, and I should have just gone on to Goodreads. But I don't want to go on to Goodreads to check to see if I've read something, if it should tell me on the site that I'm actually reading it from. So I did go back and read this. It was a reread. It was an interesting story. I don't know if I talked about it in the last video, but yes, My Destined One by Hansode is about an Omega who is pretending that they are not one, and a Beta who may or may not be going through some sort of change. So that was an interesting one. So it only got 2 chilies, and it does say in progress, and it's been in progress for a while. So the first one that we came across that I hadn't read was We're Aboard by Fate by Kinako. Now when you click on the actual work and it takes you to the page, it tells you at the top how many volumes you've got. You've got a nice big colour image, and then you've got some of the same information that you would normally have. And you've got all of these tags. You've also got all of this information here for about translation. You have to scroll through quite a lot of what is called data points. This is all basically part of a database, and it just gets fed into the website design, and that's where it appears on the page. What's missing is, unfortunately, the synopsis. So even though you can see all of these tags, you don't necessarily know what the story is about. I don't understand why they've gotten rid of that, because you have all of this extra information down here, which, you know, isn't actually all that useful. Do I need to know all about this? No, I don't. I can see it if I go in at the end page before it takes us back to the details page or onto the next chapter. So this information is not necessarily useful right here. It would be a lot easier if some of these things were hidden, and if you clicked on the button, then it came down and then you could see it. And you could even have that with the synopsis. You know, if you want to see the synopsis, press the button and the synopsis drops down. Or it could be the first sentence of the synopsis with a little, you know, grayed out more. Press the more and it gives you the rest of the synopsis. I don't understand why they have removed the synopsis from this, because knowing what you're about to read is really important, especially considering they have now added all of those content warnings. It's really kind of good to know what kind of story you're going to have. Maybe the names of the main characters, especially if you read a lot and then you review them, and you kind of want to have a quick reminder of what the story was about. Did I read this? Did I not? Yes, I did. Honestly. So this We're Aboard by Fate, Kinako, I read it. I read it last night. Do I remember what it was about? Actually, not very much. I really don't. Do I remember the names of the characters? No, I don't. Can I give you that information? No, because I'm an old lady. And old ladies don't retain all of that information, especially when they read 3 mangas in an evening and then they try and remember what it was about the next day. That's not going to happen. I am old. I don't have this memory. So having a synopsis there would be really, really helpful. But unfortunately, they've decided to get rid of that. And I don't understand that, because if they have over 400 BL manga and they've just got rid of all of the synopsis, how are we supposed to know what on earth we're going to read or what we've read? It does not make sense. Here's all of these tags, but you know, we're going to make them really big chunky buttons instead of having a synopsis. So that's something that needs to be dealt with. And I know that Manga Planet, and I hate calling it that because I'm a Futekiya subscriber and I don't like change, they are taking on board what people are saying. So hopefully they will take that on board, because not having a synopsis for the many, many works that you have seems a little bit counterintuitive, is probably the best way of putting it. Anyway, back up to We're Aboard by Fate. Okay, so now that I've actually gone in and checked again what the names of the main characters are, I can tell you. One is called Kujo, one is called Yao. Yao is the one with the collar on. So Yao, it's from Yao's perspective, he is a beta, he likes to run, but Kujo is a much faster runner than he is, and the people around him say that it's because he's an alpha. They are kind of rivals, or at least Yao sees Kujo as a rival. So they are aware of each other, they spend time with each other, they're in the same athletics club at school. But Omegaverse is very much a part of the system. Unfortunately, Yao undergoes a change, which seems to be something that happens quite a lot in a lot of Omegaverse stories nowadays. There's the idea of your changing identity, being shocked in having to confront the identities of others, and the fact that you're then put into someone else's shoes, and now you have to navigate the world in a way that you didn't have to before, and you have to recognize that there were inequalities in that society, which is quite a good thing. I think it's an interesting way of looking at it. But in this one, I enjoyed it up to a point. I did feel like it was kind of treading the normal Omegaverse boards, and then it became, let's make this all about tragedy, and it was very much focused on the tragic nature of fated mates, which is sometimes a part of Omegaverse and sometimes is omitted. In some Omegaverse, it's very much a part of it, and sometimes it's never even mentioned. So in this particular Omegaverse, fated mates is a thing, and it turns out that these two are not actually fated mates, and so there's a lot of drama and tragedy and having to deal with the consequence of that, which this particular mangaka decided to do in a specific certain way. Now, there was a moment in the story that something happened which I really don't like. I find it uncomfortable, but it's also something that people do in life, and that is when someone decides to engage in self-destructive behavior because of emotional stress or upset. And Yao decides to engage in something that is self-destructive in nature. And I don't particularly like that, but at the same time, I can kind of understand that that's something that a character or even a person in real life might choose to do. But it's not something I enjoy reading or seeing. Basically, because I'm like, no, dude, don't do it, don't do it. So yeah, it's not a high scoring Omegaverse for me, but it is perfectly serviceable, and it is very much dealing with the same kind of tragic tropes of the Omegaverse. Whereas I like the smexy and fun and nonsensical kind, whereas this one is very much a tragedy. So yeah, that was the first one I read. That wasn't a reread. Now back onto this search engine, which is quite good. We do have the Kusabi Keri ones, which if you keep on scrolling, on to the next page, there is like a set of these, so I might leave these out until the end and see if I can come back and read them, because I did decide to just skip it, because I think this is part of a series, and I want to read series together. It also says in progress and not completed, and so I'd rather read ones that that maybe are connected or completed already. So I went to this one, which is called City Light's Birthday by Hongo Chika. So on to City Light's Birthday, Hongo Chika. This was the story of Azuma and Mahoro, but I'm not sure if that's actually, well, that's how the character goes by most of the book, most of the manga. So Azuma is the main character. He's a beta who moves to the city and is working on in sort of like sports side of things. He's been studying and having a part-time job, and he's just been given a full-time job when he comes across a boy, a young man, Mahoro, who looks like he's dressed like an angel, but it's in the wintertime and he has very thin, light clothing. Anyway, they encounter each other, and it turns out that Mahoro works for like a brothel in the sex industry, and Azuma wants to help him because Mahoro needs to find his fated mate. He wants to find a person, and that person is his fated mate. And Azuma decides that he will help him. They do have a very odd relationship in the fact that they're kind of like acquaintances, then sexual partners, then friends, and they go about on this hunt for the person that is supposed to be Mahoro's fated mate. Once again, because they deal with fated mates, it does have that sort of aspect of tragedy, and I think the fated mates trope was really an integral part of the Omegaverse, and I keep on thinking about Kashikomari Destiny. Is it My Destiny or Destiny? I still can't remember. By Sachimo. And because that's one that deals with people who are fated to be together, not wanting to be together, and those who are scared of who will be the fated mate of someone who they may be in love with. So definitely much the fated mates is like ripe for the picking in tragic stories, and I think this one was a lot more layered. There was a lot more going on. There wasn't really much story other than their search for this person and their growing feelings for each other, and the fact that one of them was a beta and one of them is an omega, and the fact that the person they were trying to search for seemed like they were a very difficult alpha to get hold of. And so there was a lot of tragedy and aspects of their upbringing and their family background and things like that that needed to be dealt with as well. So it was very much a drama in that sense. The cross-dressing, I don't really think that's much of an issue. It was just because he kind of had fun doing it because he was in the brothel and they had that as one of the fun courses that you could pay extra for. So yeah, if you're looking for a specific cross-dressing thing, it's not really a big deal. That wasn't a big deal. But this was very much like a drama of emotions and how they got to the end. And it was quite touching at the end in terms of how it was resolved. And I feel like it was the only way it could have been resolved without it going into the melodrama side of things. So yeah, I did actually think this was quite well done. The art style wasn't particularly lovely, but very serviceable. So yeah, City Light's Birthday is a quite emotional one if you're interested in a tragic, emotional, but with a pleasanter ending than the previous one, I think anyway. Now, if we move down, we can see the third one that I read last night, which was We Aren't Secure by Sojima Yuko. So on to this one, Sojima Yuko, We Aren't Secure, follows, I'm trying to remember the name, Go and Kojima? I'm going to have to check again. It's Kajino, not Kojima. Kajino and Go. Kajino is an Omega who is like the student council president. He's the top of the school. He has a lot of issues when it comes to alphas. He doesn't particularly respect them, and neither should he with the way that they all behave in the school. I mean, this was the third one I read in a row, and I'm just like, these people are animals. They're animals, and I don't understand because they're all supposed to be teenagers in a school. It makes no sense. I sometimes do wonder if the Omegaverse, as it has been sort of realized as an incarnation within manga form, is not just an allegory of like a cautionary tale for women in general and abusive men. Because I mean, I do understand that that's kind of the point, but I feel like I lost that point somewhere and I'm just rediscovering it now. The whole thing of like, wow, these men are absolute bastards. They're such jerks. They're awful, awful people. And they're just like, we're animals. We're just gonna fuck anything. Literally, that's what they say. So, and they kind of are trying to justify it. Even the characters who are supposed to be good characters in this story are trying to justify the fact that they are rapists and physically, sexually abusive, um, and messed up in the head. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. This one was more wild and made me so much more angry than the other two. I think it's because it was a school setting, and also because of this character here, who is an absolute jerk. So he, as a young kid, befriends him. Let's go and Kajino. I'm trying to remember again. So they become friends when they're kids, and he seems to trust and respect and like and depend on Go quite a bit as the student council president to ensure that the other alphas stay in line and do what they're supposed to, instead of just indiscriminately attacking other members of the student body. Physical body and just body as a whole. So I don't want to say what he does, but he does something really, really unforgivable. And I mean unforgivable. And I mean it. Unfucking forgivable. Like, you cannot forgive him. So the whole, like, oh well, they get up to get in the end, you know, that's the way that they're wanting to write the story. For me, if they hadn't, I'd have been like, yeah, good, that's how it should be. Because unforgivable. I cannot stress enough. So yeah, it was not a story that I was rooting. I wasn't rooting for them. I wasn't. I was like, no, this is not a story that I want to support in any way. This was the kind of Omegaverse where you're like, I know I'm supposed to want the two of you together because that's the ship that's being presented to me, but I would rather no one sailed. There should be no sailing on any ships here. So yeah, Go does something unforgivable to him, who is supposed to be his best friend, someone he cares for, someone who he trusts implicitly, absolutely without question, would put his life in his hands, and he betrays him so comprehensively in the worst possible way. There's betrayal to the nth degree. So when I say unforgivable, I mean really, like, there's no going back from that. Or at least there shouldn't be, in my mind anyway. So yeah, this was I mean, I'm not happy about it, but it was interesting. The art style was interesting too. I quite enjoyed it, but I didn't particularly enjoy the characters, and didn't feel like the high school students were behaving in a way that was legally appropriate. And I think that, I don't know, there should have been a little bit more recourse for some of the things were going on. Like, it starts, I have to say this, I mean, what were the tags? Childhood friends, yeah. Classmates, yeah. Dubious consent, yes. Yeah. Dubious? I think it's not dubious. Omegaverse, school life, drama, slice of life, yeah, okay. This manga starts off with an Omega that we don't know getting attacked by two alpha students in like a closed classroom or a preparation room, that kind of thing. And the two of them, as members of the student council, bash the door down, and the two alphas have to just kneel in the corridor with a sign next to them saying, what they did, so that people can walk past and go, oh, shame on them, But that's all they do. They don't get hauled in front of the teachers and paraded, to the police station and charged with assault or attempted sexual assault. There's none of that. There's no recourse. There's no consequences for their actions. And that's what I don't like. That's what I've now just discovered as I'm talking. That's what I don't like about this, is there is no consequences for the actions of the absolutely horrendous alphas in this story. And I feel like that's maybe that's what's missing from this manga. Consequences. But honestly, I'm like, Sojima Yuko, are you telling me that there is no hope for womankind if we are using the allegory of, you know, the Omega as the female species, or those who are have violence perpetuated upon them by the male aggressors in society. Because I'm thinking, no, that's not good. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, yeah, police state. Do I trust them? No. So this was a bit disappointing in the fact that it just it left me feeling disappointed in life in general. But it was still an interesting read. So yeah, it's probably a 3-star for me, but not in terms of, I'm not recommending it. I don't recommend it at all. And in saying that, I'm probably making all of you go, ooh, no, I want to read it. So the next one, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to leave off Whales of the Bound. It's in progress and maybe come back to it at the end. So the next one, I'm looking at other completed ones, is A Lying Omega's Guide to Getting Bitten, Marking Omega, and Don't Touch Little Star. So these are the next 3 I'm going to read, and I will update you when I've read them. Now, just before I start A Lying Omega's Guide to Getting Bitten by Megane, I just wanted to point out that what they do have still is this section here. So where the chapters are, if you have read them, they turn grey. It's a very light, subtle grey, which to my eyes is a little too subtle because, as I mentioned, I'm an old lady, so I need things a little bit more obvious. In Manga Planet, it's a grey one. In Futekiya, I don't know, was it grey or was it pink? I'll have to check. I don't know if I have footage. I'm sure I do. I'll have footage somewhere. So yeah, if I have some, you'll see it. If I don't, then you won't. But yeah, so when you read it, it kind of goes a grey colour. But like I said, it's a very subtle grey. But they still don't have the numbers, and the numbers are much easier for me to see. So yeah, I'm going to read this one next. I will check in when I finished it. So I've had my dinner. It was nice. And while I was having my dinner, I thought I would just read this one. A Lying Omega's Guide to Getting Bitten by Megane. And the 2 characters, Narumiya and Tsukishima, were very good. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a workplace one, which is fun. As you can see, they have now turned grey. So there's this little grey line along here. And they are slightly different in colour, which is really difficult to tell on screen and in person too. So if I've read them already, that's what it looks like. But for me, it's a little bit, it's not quite as much. I don't know, maybe if I change the intensity or brightness of the screen, maybe if I put it to like dark mode, maybe that would help. I don't know. Maybe. Any suggestions would be gratefully received. Anyway, this one was, as I said, a workplace one. We've got Tsukishima, who is a member of staff who's been headhunted into the sales department, and Narumiya, who was the #1 sales. I love these sales guys. The sales division has kind of been ousted as the #1. Tsukishima's back in, has come in and taken that top spot. And the 2 of them have a little bit of rivalry. Love it. And then one day Narumiya comes back to the office and finds Tsukishima there. But he's in heat, and he's not an alpha as he claims to be. He is in fact an omega. And they start their relationship, which is one of semi-convenience and semi kind of not very, almost but not quite kind of blackmail, but it's not really, because Tsukishima's the one that's like, hey, you can have your wicked way with me now. He doesn't seem at all bothered about the possibility of being blackmailed or having the information that he's an omega be broadcast in any way. And he does say to Narumiya the very first time that he can bite him. And that's kind of what the whole story is about. It's about getting bitten and how to go about doing that. And it's exactly what it says in the tin. It's very good, it's very fun. There's very little in the way of drama or anything traumatic or sad or anything. So it avoids those kinds of tropes within the Omegaverse that almost all of the ones I've read so far have. This one also does deal with fated mates though, and but in a non well, it was a little bit. There was a little bit of an element of that, but yeah, this was a good, fun, easy one. It's the kind that I like to read. The ones that don't actually involve a great deal of emotional investment. I'm not gonna cry reading this one. There is an awful lot of sex in it as well, though. An awful lot of sex, literally every second page. So if that's your thing, that's your thing. I don't know what I'm gonna read next though. Marking Omega. I guess that's the one I'm going to read next. So I moved on to Marking Omega by Fujikawa Ruri, and it was really funny because I was like, Fujikawa Ruri, what? Why does that name sound so familiar? And then I clicked on the very first chapter, and I recognized the little chibi character of the mangaka describing what the Omegaverse was, and it was like, yay! I love this mangaka. I totally didn't know that she'd done an Omegaverse. This was actually really good. This was the kind of one that I really enjoy as well. This is another good one. You gotta find the good ones because it's teachers, it's workplace, a bit of drama, but not too much drama, and it's just a complete in its one shot. So we've got Yoshida and Hidaka. And they are teachers at a school. Hidaka arrives at school to cover some other teacher who is absent, and they get assigned the same class to look after. One of them instantly is like, oh, you're an Omega, that's rare. So it's apparently very rare to have teachers be Omegas in this world. And the other thing that I absolutely love about the fact that the Omegaverse is introduced to Japan and Japanese mangaka, and they're like, okay, here is a complete setting with all of the rules of this society. Here you go in a nice, neat wee package. And the Japanese mangaka for BL just go, great, thanks for that. Now we're going to change everything, make our own rules, and break all of the rules and do things differently. And I love that. They will take something and make it their own. And so Fujikawa Ruri has decided to kind of combine a couple of elements that I've seen in other manga work before, and that is that if there is some contact with an Omega and an Alpha in this particular world, then the Omega bears a mark, not just the bite mark, but another mark you can see on the forehead there. So this is kind of obvious in different ways. So different prominent alpha families will have different types of marks. And so obviously there's a bit of an issue. So Yoshida is a flawed Omega. He doesn't have heats and he doesn't have any sexual feelings. He doesn't need to take suppressants and that kind of thing. And that's why he's a teacher and that's why he can work there. Anyway, Hidaka, who comes along and is like, oh yeah, I'm a beta. Like, yeah, are you? Because you don't look like all the other betas. The two of them obviously have to work together and interact, and something happens, and then everything changes. And so it's just the two of them kind of working out what's going on. It was just lovely. It's Fujikawa Ruri's artwork, which I just love. And so it was just nice to have a manga digitally from her, because I am a fan. She has a little chibi character of her as a deer, like from Nara. So I think she may be from Nara. But I do like her art style. I like the stories that she tells. They're always really interesting. There's just enough drama, but it's never over the top. There's always that feeling of happily ever after at the end, which is good. And she has really interesting, usually anyway, really interesting afterwards. She likes to, I think it's her anyway, anthropomorphize things. So she'll be like walking in the supermarket and come across things and be like, oh, I wonder if they were BL characters, what kind of characters would they be? Would they be twinks? Would they be big butch guys? Would they be an uke? Would they be a semi? You know, that's the kind of thing. She's literally looking at fruit and veg or biscuits or what was it? Ponzu? I think it's Fujikawa really anyway who does this. And it just makes me laugh because it's the kind of thing that you think very immature teenagers with bad social skills will be thinking, but actually, you know, it's a middle-aged mangaka just doing their grocery shopping. So yeah, this one was a good one. Heartily recommend marking Omega. This was one that I enjoyed a lot. So yeah, hopefully they'll get more Fujikawa Ruri work on Futekiya. It is nice to be able to read some of the new works that mangaka are producing without having to wait years and years for a physical print edition. So yeah, I will move on to the next one and check in with you when I finished. Okay, so I finished another one. This is Don't Touch Little Star by Mamita. And ooh, this is the good stuff. This is the good stuff. This has age gap, which I know I say every time I don't like age gap, but then I read something that's got age gap in it and I'm like, this slapped. Now the reason it is because it's an older bottom, younger top. I love those dynamics. I love an older bottom, younger top. Especially when it is Omegaverse, because it does mean that generally that is the alpha who is the younger. In this case, we have an even more difficult dynamic, which is adopted son. No, I hear you cry. No. Oh yes. So the story is that this character here is 35, I think, and this character is just turned 18. But for the past 10 years, he has lived with him as an adopted son. Their parents were in an accident together. So, how do I do this? His father married his aunt, and the five of them, his parents and his father and stepmother, were in the car together with him, and they had an accident and they all died. And so he decided to adopt him and bring him up, even though he was, at that point, he didn't know an alpha and that he's an omega. But of course, once again, we have these storylines when we say, oh, it was the omega, but they had an issue with their heat cycle and they didn't get their heat cycle, that kind of thing. Of course. I do love the whole, we're gonna make these rules and then just break them. I also do like this. There's been quite a few Omegaverse where you have had the younger top, older bottom, and also that you've had these sort of adopted family dynamics as well. I think that was one of the first ones that I read. But this one was good. I really enjoyed it. So if I go back to this one, where we have hopefully the whole different Omegaverse on this particular page. This is page 1. So you can see the one at the bottom is Don't Touch Little Star. But if we scroll all the way to the top, How to Raise an Alpha You Love is almost, you know, an identical type story. It's almost identical. It really is very, very similar. So yeah, if you like How to Raise an Alpha You Love, which is what I think from the first tag video I did, which I read until when 2 alphas become one. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was up to the Revolutionary Alpha. I think that was at that point. From all of these different titles, I decided that I think my favorite was How to Raise an Alpha You Love. And so if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, Don't Touch Little Star is almost the exact same story, slightly different, but still very much an enjoyable one. I don't know, I like family dynamic ones. I think that's what I like about these, the more domestic ones. So yeah, this was a good one. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend, especially if you like older tops, older bottoms, younger tops, and with a family dynamic, with that whole, like, no, it was a good one. I liked it a lot. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to read tomorrow, because it's almost bedtime for me, so I'm going to probably just go to sleep. Emotional Manhunt Omegaverse, Romantic Lament, Stray Dogs Night, and that might be it. I don't know. We'll see what else there is. A few more. Whales of the Bound, that was another one, so that's that says it's completed though, so we'll have to see. So these are the other ones. The ones that are just on the subscription are the ones that I will be reading. So I think this one here, A Callboy Secret, is mixed, so that won't be one that I read. So yeah, I'll have to check. But yeah, probably the next one, Emotional Manhunt Omegaverse. So we'll see what else. There's a lot. I am out of the loop on the Omegaverse ones. I need to catch up. So I've got my dinner I'm about to eat, but I thought I would just update you. I did read a bit last night and then this morning, a bit of Romantic Lament. This is by Sato Sanayuki. So this one is very much in the tradition of the Omegaverse. The oh, woe is us, we are fated to be in this way, that kind of thing. So fated mates is definitely a thing in this Omegaverse. We've got Asahi, this boy here is Asahi, and then we've got Akiyomi, but turns out that Akiyomi is a twin, and Asahi used to go out with Masaomi, his twin brother. And so he meets him in a club and thinks he's Masaomi because he's drunk, and they end up finding out about each other in that respect, because he didn't know that he had a twin when he was dating Masaomi. And he never met Asahi, even though Masaomi had planned to meet with Asahi on his 20th birthday. So it was kind of a fateful meeting when he's 20 and he's going to supposed to be doing something, but unfortunately he doesn't. So the reason why Masaomi and Asahi are no longer together is because Asahi's childhood friend came to visit, and it turned out that they were fated mates, Masaomi and him, Futawa. And so Asahi's lived the last couple of years in a very sad way, and kind of very depressed, and feeling kind of rightfully so cast aside. So then he meets this other person who looks exactly the same as the person he used to love, and is his brother. And so he decides to, Akiyomi decides to rewrite all of his memories with his twin brother, with Asahi, so that Asahi can move on. In the end, of course, they end up falling in love. But there's a twist at the end, and it's like, oh. So I do think it was quite well done in that respect, because the twist could have been really bad, but it was handled much better than I've seen some other Omegaverse twin stories being handled, which is full of woe, tales of woe. So this one was actually quite good. I have also read Stray Dogs Night. This one I read today just before lunch while my veg was cooking. And this one is, oh, I don't know, like, I didn't like how it ended, I have to say. I think the ending was pretty pants. The art style's nice. It's full of, like, let's have a look at the tabs. Shibue Yohune. Dubious consent, police detective, Omegaverse drama. I think you'd have to put some psychology in there as well, like a psychological thing. There's definitely probably some trigger warnings needed, but I didn't really like it. It was a police detective trying to find out something, and a guy he was kind of getting involved with, but who could or could not be involved with the thing he's investigating. And it's one of those kinds of stories. And it was like from the very first, I was like, oh, so that other guy's the main person. Okay, got you. You know, like you know it. So it was kind of boring, um, and also a bit like weird. But if you like alphas who are bottoms, then this is maybe one you want to try. So yeah, um, I've skipped over one, as you might have noticed at this top. That's Emotional Manhunt Omegaverse, and that's because it's in progress apparently, and there's 4 volumes, so I might come back and read it, but I would prefer to do the one shots and get them out of the way. So I need to check down here to see which ones are ones that are available. I think Please Bond With Me, which is a Kodaka Kazuma one, which I really want to read. I think that's available for me to read. And Whales of the Bound as well, maybe. So I'll have to see which ones I can read, and I'll check in with you. If not, I guess I'm reading this one, which is 4 volumes. I didn't expect a 4 volume series as part of this video, but there you go. Anyway, I'm gonna eat my my dinner slash lunch. It's all veg, cauliflower cheese, some cabbage and some mashed potato. Delicious and very healthy. Okay, so it's a little bit more in the evening now. I have read Please Bond With Me by Kodaka Kazuma. This is a 2 volume series. It says it's complete, and I have to tell you that when I got to the end, the final chapter, I had to go and check again. Did it say complete? And then I actually went to Baka Manga updates to check. Is it 2 volumes complete? Apparently so. I had to check because it was not a great ending. Up until probably maybe the last chapter or the second to last chapter, I was going, wow, this is great. I am loving this. This is I'm having a great time. Brilliant. Fantastic. So glad that this is going to be one of the last ones I read for this little mini vlog. And then it was kind of dawning on me like, ooh, there's gonna have to be some kind of like significant structural issues with the final chapters to be able to wrap up all of the ends of this story to make it a satisfying story and have a satisfactory conclusion. And it did not. It feels as though with the way that Kodaka Kazuma was writing this story, that there was like surely the possibility of a full third volume for sure. I could definitely see that being something that could happen, because the way that it ended, I was like, no. So this is kind of like like a love triangle story. There's a young man. I didn't know how young he was until quite a bit into the story. So we've got this young man here, and he's like the only male alpha in a family of traditional tea ceremony, wealthy people. And this young man here is a little bit older. He's probably, I had to work it out, he's probably at least I would say 10 years older than him. And he's an Omega, and he works at the hospital, and he does counselling work to help those who are Alpha or Omega and any issues they might have. He does a lot of counselling work with them, and he does medical tests and things like that for their secondary gender, that kind of thing. Anyway, so they meet, and they have to deal with the issues that this Alpha has when he apparently can't smell Omegas, and so that's the issue that he's dealing with. But there is also a third person in the story, and the third person is another doctor who works with him, who is married to his sister, and the whole story there. This was the perfect kind of Omegaverse story where you have people who have the whole secondary gender thing going on, but they also have very traditional tropes within romance for the conflict, and the conflict being like, what is going to stop two people from being together, and what is it that has traditionally been used in the past. So, for example, if someone is from the wrong class, or the wrong financial situation, or the wrong religion, or the wrong race, all of these things have been used traditionally in the past in romance and now as the crux, or as the conflict that stops two people from being together. That's what the romantic pair need to overcome, this to be able to be together. And so in this respect, there's the Omegaverse side of things, but there's also a very good use of traditional tropes in the sense that they're using class and privilege and things like that. But it was also incredibly distressing and kind of sad, and also heartbreaking. There was some really fun moments and tender moments, and it had, of course, Kodaka Kazuma's amazing artwork. I love her so much. I think she's great. I think she does really heartbreaking stories really, really well, because you don't think they're going to be, and then you're just like, oh god. And this was kind of one of them, in that whole star-crossed lovers type thing. But also, for this being on Omegaverse, I would say watch out for trigger warnings and content warnings, which makes me think, hold on, I need to go back, actually I'll just go back this way. When it comes to the tags, when we've been looking at things like this, if I go back again, here at the top, I don't remember the content warnings being there before. Maybe they were, and like I said, I'd love to know. We've got animal abuse, child abuse, domestic abuse, drug, incest, non-consent, self-harm, and suicide. So these are really, quite big issues. I think what needs to be added to the content warning is specifically the spoiler alert for that particular one, that particular Omegaverse, is the fact that we do have Omegaverse and we do have MPreg, and so there is sometimes miscarriage, and when people have miscarriage when they lose a child, and that should probably be in the content warnings as well. So that's another thing that Manga Planet should maybe think about in terms of improving their service. There are lots of things that they could do to improve this, to make it so that it's better. I do think miscarriage is something that needs to be put in as a content warning, specifically for, you don't want to know it if it's in a story and it's going to be a spoiler, but you also, if you know that that's something that's going to be in the story and it's going to affect you personally, I do think it needs to be so that you can exclude it. That's just something straight off the bat. All of these, yes, very much you could have, but I also think if you're going to have BL, if you're going to have Omegaverse, if you're going to have MPreg, miscarriage is something that you could have as a content warning, especially when, I'm not being sexist here, but a majority of the readers of BL are female, and so that might be something that could affect the readers. So it's not something that everyone would agree with as a content warning, but for me personally, I think, because I do enjoy Omegaverse, and I do always feel like really affected by the characters when they do lose a child. It's like, oh, especially if it then has lasting or long-term effects. They are traumatic, and it's used in a traumatic way, and sometimes it's not. And I do think that it was a particularly well done. Kodaka Kazuma certainly did a good job, I think, of using that as a good way. So there's certain things in each of these Omegaverse that you kind of need to be aware of, that sometimes gets used, and sometimes childbirth or a traumatic childbirth or miscarriage. Those kinds of things could be used for trigger warning. So I do think that's probably a good thing. Anyway, as we have got to a point, it could be a good stopping point. It might be a good stopping point for me too. So here we have We're Aboard by Fate. Here's Whales of the Bound. Now I do have to talk about this because it says it's in progress. I don't particularly want to read an in progress one, but unfortunately I also don't want to read it because I'm not entirely sure what the story is. Is this one the one I read before? And like I've got Back a Manga updates open, but I shouldn't have to go and check out. Is this the first one or is this the second one? So I'm gonna go to the mangaka Kusabi Keri and see. So I see that these two are, one says completed and one says in progress. But I don't know which one you are supposed to read first. I don't know. I know that they're both kind of connected, but I can't remember, and I'd have to go and check. But if I had a synopsis, I wouldn't have to check. And if also it said, like a section where it said, connected or in some way, like a sequel or a prequel, things that have a connection, like the first volume of the something series, that would be useful too, Manga Planet. Hey, hopefully someone watches this and says, this is a good idea. Unfortunately, this one that's completed, which is the other one, has just been updated and it has 3 volumes. And I was like, oh wow, okay, so it's completed and it's 3 volumes, so maybe I should read this one first. Once again, no synopsis. So I can read all of this first volume, I can read all of the second volume, but this third volume that just got updated is not part of the subscription. So this is one of those that will infuriate so many of the subscribers and is enough for many people to stop subscribing, is because this one got updated on November, this one in December, and then this third one is like, oh hey, yeah, no, you're gonna have to pay for this if you want to read it. No thank you. So you've allowed people to read the first 2 volumes, but the third volume you've snuck up on. And that's what it feels like. It feels like it's being snuck up on. Whereas the newer ones, the newer titles, if we look back to look at the ones that have been added just recently. So these are all the ones that I've read in this vlog. But the newer ones from A Callboy's Secret, Delinquent Omega Belongs to the Beast King, Liar Mate, Mr. Wolf, Now I Say the Idol's Omega Secret, Satiating the Wolf, Whales of the Bound, and Never Let Go. All of these ones, newer ones, excluding Whales of the Bound, beta, these were all new additions after the merger, and so we understand as consumers, as customers, okay, so this is the new stuff that is available on other sites, by the way. Please do go check them out. Probably check which is the cheapest option for you if you would like to read them. Here's some free chapters, or here's some for the subscribers, but then you have to start paying for the extra chapters. I can understand that. It's ones like this that you've been able to read the first 2 full volumes for, and suddenly you need to pay for each chapter instead of just paying for the whole volume as well. That's another thing, because that 200 points adds up, and that's not something that I do with Renta either. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I can understand wholeheartedly why some of the customers complained and also unsubscribed. So yeah, Manga Planet will now lose some of their customers because of that. Please bond with me though. Is probably the last one I'm going to read for this. I was thinking about doing the last one. I'm not going to. This is it. So please bond with me is the last one I'm reading for this video, because it's probably already too long. But yeah, I really, really loved it. I enjoyed it. And then it kind of let me down at the end. So be prepared and warned that it will be a fun story. It'll be a Kodaka Kazuma story that you will enjoy, and then you'll be let down at the end because for whatever reason, maybe she got told that they're not going to renew it for a third volume. Maybe she had to, and that's the kind of thing that happens sometimes. So yeah, that definitely had that feeling of rushed at the end rather than completed in the way that you would have wanted it to be completed as the mangaka. So yeah, the ones I didn't read or the ones I did read. So I read Stray Dog's Night, which was only so-so. I didn't particularly enjoy it. Romantic Lament, which was full of trauma, and a lot of melodrama. And this one here is the Emotional Manhunt Omegaverse, which is 4 volumes long. I'm not reading it because it's still in progress as well. So I'm thinking, no, maybe I'll wait until there's a third Omegaverse, which I'm not going to. I'm probably not going to. Are they gonna update lots of more Omegaverse? And then down to the bottom. Don't Touch Little Star. Loved it. Family. Oh, the taboo. Loved it. And that's probably why I loved it so much. It's so full of taboo. Marking Omega was great as well because it was Fujikawa Ruri. And I love Fujikawa Ruri. So I really enjoyed Marking Omega as well. A Lying Omega's Guide to Getting Bitten was a fun story. It was exactly what it said it was. We Aren't Secure. Hated that. Go can fuck off. He's a terrible character. City Light's Birthday felt almost needlessly melodramatic in a way. It felt a little bit needlessly melodramatic in the fact that you know that the characters were kind of honest, or at least one of the characters was honest. I feel like the other character could have been a bit more honest. Whales of the Bound, I am obviously not going to read now. There's no point. No point in reading half a story, is there? And We're Aboard by Fate, which was kind of a traditional kind of Omegaverse, if you get what I mean by that. In the fact that it's full of the lousy tropes that you know, and lousy characters. But I still enjoy reading. So yeah, hopefully you found something that you might want to read. If you don't want to, subscribe, because Futekiya is no more. It really does feel like it's gone. That's sad. And they have a lot of things to improve about the site. And they might not. The whole blue thing, I know they've already said, that's our branding, so that's not going anywhere. And they were really quite brusque about that, because someone had said, hey, I really like the pink on social media. Could you think about maybe changing it so that maybe if people are logging in as a Futekiya subscriber, we get everything in pink? And they were like, no. But actually, I think that would be good. And yes, it does feel like it's a complete site on its own, which is what Futekiya was. But I do think, unfortunately, it seems to me, some people have pointed out that there was a lot more subscribers for Futekiya than there was for Manga Planet. And that overall, you're taking a service that some people did not subscribe to, that there was a fewer customer bases for your main product, and a heck of a lot more customers for your offshoot product, and the offshoot product then gets subsumed into your main product, but everyone in the offshoot product is like, we hate this. I'm sure there are lots of people who are like, that's great, I can read all of the stuff on Manga Planet now. I'm not such a fan of the fact that here you come here and it's shoujo, josei, shonen, seinen, and then it's BL Futekiya and GL here. I know that this is how the Manga Planet's obviously been, but I don't really need to see this. I'm not interested. This is all I'm here for. And I liked it because it was a safe space, and it does feel like it's sad because we can't have nice things. We can't have nice things. BL fans are the kind that invest and pay money for things without going, if we want something, we want to support it, we put our money there. And that's because generally, I know it's like I'm going to say again, there are mostly women who do subscribe. It's mostly women who are BL fans. And so there's a lot of female customers who have been known traditionally to be the ones. I mean, Comiket is Comiket in Japan because of women. Women, I feel like. I feel like, you know, understanding and knowing that's your customer base and then disregarding that is kind of a bit lousy. I don't know. I'd like to hear from any male subscribers of Futekiya who have a different point of view or the same point of view. I would love to know, because sometimes the safe space is it's a type of gendered space, the pink, the BL, and sometimes men need that too. And I feel like that's something that is missing, is the acknowledgement that it doesn't matter what gender you are. The gendered space, as in this is a nice safe space to be, is sometimes just nice to be in. So yeah, I'd love to know what anyone else's opinions are of this new manga planet. I obviously just think that they need to redo some things. They need to get the issues I've pointed out already fixed. And I think it's quite easy to do when you're looking at, so for example, in the tag search here, it's super duper easy to include and exclude. So when it comes to searching, if you need to exclude buy or rental, free preview, all of those things, you can easily add that in to exclude and include, so that you are excluding anything that isn't part of the subscription plan, so that I don't need to see it, so that I don't need to get annoyed. Because if I have to see and search and wade through all of these buying and rental ones to be able to read what I've legally already paid for with my subscription, it's gonna get old really soon. And I have my subscription paid for until the end of May, and then I will be making a decision. So come mid-May, remind me, hey, what's your thoughts on Manga Planet? The fact that I have to call it Manga Planet now just is so annoying. But then, hey, I don't like change. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this Omegaverse mini vlog. I don't know how long this is going to be. Another tag vlog. I do enjoy doing these things, but I don't know how much I'm going to be including in future videos, just because I don't know how much I'm going to want to use it. There are certain things that I want to read before I make any decisions, and so I have already started doing that. So Blue Sky Complex was one that I wanted to read, and I've already read that. That's one that has gone in my read pile. So yeah, these are the new ones that I'm not reading. Please bond with me. So yeah, I do think that it would be interesting to know what other people have to say about Manga Planet, and let me know in the comments down below. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you liked it. Subscribe. Helps out the channel. I'm very close to 300. Wow! Isn't that amazing? So yeah, take care everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!